Hello boys and girls of YouTube. Well, this is the second video of my pinball adventure, and today we're going to be tackling cleaning. Really with these older electromechanical pinball machines, I'd say 90% of the issues that I'm coming to find out are because things need to be cleaned. There are a few moving parts. There's actually an electric motor in here that spins a few things, and you have solenoids that are controlled by switches. And we're going to be tackling cleaning probably the switches first. So let me give you, hopefully I can zoom in without too much issue. Basically, what you're looking at are switches, and they're controlled. If you look on the right hand side, that is a solenoid. It's a magnetic solenoid. In other words, when you add power to it, it creates a magnetic field and moves the leaf switches. That's what those switches are called. And depending on what type of switch it actually is, when it moves it, it could either open a circuit, close a circuit, or switch a circuit. What I mean by switch, one side can be on, and then when you move it, it turns that side off, but turns the other side on. There's actually technical terms for all that stuff, but if you're a novice like me, you really don't necessarily need to know exactly. I mean, when you're looking it up, I guess you do, so I'll fill in that information probably in the comments. The three types of switches you can actually have. And this way, when you're looking it up, you can kind of look it up correctly. But for all intents and purposes right now, well, I'm going to try to point, but not sure if I can hold the camera and point at the same time. Yep, I'm coming to find out. Can't really hold the camera and point at the same time. Just not working out here. So if this thing's shaking, I apologize, but basically, this is the solenoid I was talking about. This is the part that moves in. You can move it now. You can see it moves those leaf switches and turns, some of them are sitting off right now, some of them are sitting, well, let's see, I don't think there's any, that one, this one all the way over here is probably on right now. When we move it, it turns it off. The second one is off. When you move it, it turns it on. Third one is off. When you move it, it turns it on. And then the last one at the top, when you move it, it looks like it turns it on. So when you put power to this coil, I'm not even sure what it is. There is a little label here. I can't quite see it from where I'm standing looking through the camera. It tells you what this is. And if you ever need to figure that out and get the schematics, it can kind of tell you, and you can see what it does. But what we're going to do today is clean in between those leaves. And the way you do that is with a little file. And you want to, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this one-handed, but what you want to do is there's contacts in there, and you want to get that in there, and you see the little bumps at the end. That's what you're trying to clean. Again, one-handed, not really making much progress. Maybe by the end of these videos I'll get the hang of it, but right now I'm not there. Now, what you also want to do is you want to sometimes need to adjust these, because sometimes they do get out of adjustment. So like this one at the end here, like I said, when you move this, it opens it. But if you notice when you're looking at these things, and you can tell it's open, want to open it because it's on one side when you move it. See how it opens? That's how you can kind of tell. And if it was on the other side and there's space to begin with and you move it, it should close it. If it doesn't close, you kind of got to bend those things. And you can bend them any way you want, but I bought a tool. They're cheap, like $12 for a set of 3. I don't know if you can tell, but it has a slit at the end, you're not going to be able to tell really from this angle, but as a slit at the end, and I'm going to try to see if I can maneuver it onto one of these. You can see how it goes. And you want to do it towards the base. And maybe you can kind of see how it fits on there, and if you'll twist it, there I can kind of move it. Maybe not, it's getting all blurry. There we go. And you adjust it that way. That's what I'm going to do. Now, there's definitely not really any talent or knack of what you're looking at, but here, there's a better ones over here, so see how they're easily seen, and you can see how they're moving. And if they're open now, you close them. So, and actually here's one that's open close at the bottom where my thumb is. That one, it actually, you have to look at it a little closer, but look at the bottom leaf and the middle. Right now it looks like it's closed, and then the top part of that looks like it's open. When you move it, it's doing the opposite. It's open at the bottom one and closed in that top one. There is a little bit of space, I think. I guess I have to look a little closer to that. But if they're all three were touching, it's probably not what it should be. Because you want the opposite reaction, at least one of those, when this solenoid pulls this lever in. And that's what you're looking for. Now, you don't want to go ahead and adjust these if they don't obviously look like they need to be adjusted. You definitely don't want to adjust them, because years of this thing working itself, they come to like a rhythm or pattern, and unless it's obvious that it's messed up, don't touch it. Leave it alone. You might have to come back to it and actually might need an adjustment if you can't tell for a fact, because it looks close like that one I just looked at. Can't tell for a fact. Move on, and you might come back to it when you're actually getting this thing up and running and all together, and you have an issue, and when you're trying to sort it out, maybe that is a thing. We'll get to that if I have any of those type of problems. But for right now, the idea is just to clean these, fix any of those leaves that look obviously messed up. Because I can see one broken over here already. Got a little divot in it. But it doesn't look like it's going to hurt anything. Now you can still get these parts. They're actually relatively cheap. But the idea today is just go and clean all these up. Make sure all the solenoid switches look like they're working right. And you can see there's quite a few of them. So I'm not going to show you how to do them all these, but there's quite a few of them. So I'm going to do all those. And then we'll go to the next step, which is probably cleaning these things with their, well, this is half of those, half what I want to clean. And these are actually called Jones plugs. Don't know where the name came from. And excuse the moving, but here's the other end. Now this one actually doesn't go to these. These actually go to the head unit, but there was something close I can grab, but it shows you the two pieces. And we'll get to more of those a little later on when I start cleaning those. But for right now, I'm going to spend probably the next better part of a day looking at all these switches and cleaning them up. So when I'm done with that, I'll start recording again so this way you can kind of see progress. And if I do see anything obvious, like that one that had a little chip out of it, I'll turn it back on, record it, and show you what I found. So, till then, bye. Alright, as I kind of mentioned before, as I was cleaning this, if I saw anything interesting regarding the switches, I would mention it. And I did find something somewhat kind of interesting. Hopefully the light is not blinding. Actually, let me kind of turn this off here. Let's see if I can angle that a little bit better. Go from the back, maybe? Alright, maybe this works. Maybe not. We'll see. Well, anyway, this is a 5-cent relay, they're calling it. And since this unit is set up for home use. Not sure if this is a concern or not yet. My understanding this was a working game at one point, so I'm assuming it was working with this piece missing. If you don't see a big gaping hole or gap, there should be a solenoid right in there, and it should trigger these switches. I'm assuming people put money in, they would somehow registered back here and add credits to the machine. So just keep that in mind as I go through this. If we have any kind of issue with adding credits or getting free play, I might need to come back to this and take a look. So like I said, just keep it in mind. If you kind of continue watching, you might have to get back to this, we might not. So almost done cleaning all the switches. When I get done, I'll turn this back on and we'll go over what I'm going to clean next. Probably the Jones plugs. There's a few of them on here, and we'll go over those. All right, talk to you in a little bit. Also, real quick, I just noticed this right after I turned off the camera. Got a busted wire. Again, seems like it might be for adding, credits through coin. But it's pretty obvious where it went. Right there. So, again, just one more thing to keep an eye on. Hopefully it's nothing, but at least I'm aware of it if we do have an issue. Alright, moving on. Alright, boys and girls of YouTube. Now, I finished all the switches. Yep, that shadow again. And we're going to move on to the Jones plugs. So, there's two ends. One is a male end, one is a female end. For the female end, perfect example is right here. You have, if I focus it, there we go, a little brush. And right below it is what is recommended to clean the inside of the female section. So basically, you're gonna, excuse my hand, basically put it in there and just go up and down a few times and take a look and see if you see anything bad in there. So I've got a whole bunch I got to do on this side, and then a few more back here, and then on the male side, basically, let's see, what do I have, a male end here, over here, excuse, coming up, there it is, and basically they're not too bad, but if you see there is a line like in the middle of all of them, kind of just want to get them all nice and shiny. This way they make good connections onto the female side. So these you can take usually like a green 3M, I call them scrubby brushes, not brushes, pads, 3M green pads. I've got a few of those, and I just clean them all up, make them nice and shiny. So when we're done with that, I'll show you how shiny I guess I get them. Alright, let me work on those. Alright, just to give you an example of, I guess, how good they're coming. Excuse the bad camera. Still not used to doing this stuff one-handed. So you can see the top one much better than the bottom one. Some shadows on the top one, but it's shined up. You're just trying to get that. I mean, a lot of times they're, maybe not a lot of times, but a few times they're worse than this. They're green, but you can see how the bottom ones are a little gray and dingy. You're just trying to clean that off so it makes a better contact. So that's what we're going for. It doesn't take that long. Like a couple minutes of scrubbing. It comes out alright. Alright. More to come. Alright, boys and girls. I cleaned all the Jones plugs on all the ends. Now we're going to move on to what they call the stepper units. That's one for the ball count, which is right there, and one for the coin count. Now, prior to turning on the video, I did notice that this spring was actually on this one. And they're supposed to both have springs. You can buy the springs. It's like $2 for that. You can buy a whole kit for like $5, which is this spring, this spring, and this spring, and supposedly this fourth spring, but I guess it depends on what stepper unit you have. Unless I'm missing that one, but I don't see where it would go. But if anything, I might go and replace that. But right now we're going to try to clean these up, and let me scoot around the other side and I'll show you what we're cleaning really. Alright, a little darker on this side. Let's see if we get some light on the subject. Alright, so basically, that was the coin count, that was the ball count. Now, I moved the spring from the coin count to the ball count because I think the ball count is more important, because currently, right now, this thing should be set on free play, so I'm not really concerned about counting coins. Similar to that issue we saw on his 5-cent relay setup. So, yeah, can't get a great miss. Nope. Anyway, so what we're trying to do is clean up the contacts, and you can see, so you can zoom in, excuse the camera angle, there's some marks. That black mark, we're gonna get rid of that because that's where the spider, that's what they call that. Some have more, like that one, makes the contacts. And again, these boards have different purposes sometimes. That's why some will have contacts all the way around that board and you're not even using them because they use them for different things. This one is just the ball count, so you only need 5 sections to connect to, advance the ball, or when you lose the ball, go to the next ball. So we're gonna go clean that up. So let me show you that when it's done. Alright, we're back. Let's see if we can get a close-up of that. And a little bit, sorry for the angle, but see the line's gone. If you look at the old one that I didn't touch, you can see how there's a line. The only thing I did notice was on the left, let's call it arm, not the top one, but the left one. There's a pad on the arms that actually contacts the copper traces, and it would look a little bent, so it looked like the arm was touching opposed to that little pad. So I did bend it a little bit to make it touch. And if you see some shininess, there's, put a little what they call dielectric grease on it to help, obviously lessen the wear. Now, this thing moved pretty good when I moved it, so I didn't take the shaft apart and all that anything. But if you notice, somebody most likely had this thing apart, because if you see at the bottom, there's a black mark kind of lining up. That's so when you take it apart, you put it back together, you know how it goes back together. A little help. So obviously somebody's taking this apart over the 40 some odd years of its life. So, but the dielectric grease that we use is, let me turn it upside right here. You can get this on Amazon hardware store. So, multi-purpose synthetic grease. Basically it's non-conductive, because obviously with all the electricity running through this thing, you definitely do not want something that's can conduct electricity that it shouldn't. So that's what you use. Very rarely on a pinball machine do you really grease anything. Metal on metal you can, but you definitely do not want to use WD-40. If you notice, I kind of grabbed this before, well, had it next to it. And this is something definitely, excuse me for clearing my throat, this is something that you can definitely use if you need to grease any parts on a pinball machine. Definitely non-flammable. It'll do the trick, but again, a lot of the areas you want to grease are only metal to metal. Pinball machine, there's definitely a lot of metal to Teflon. Those you do not need to grease. In fact, you want to clean those up. And just, do I have any examples floating around here? Oh yeah, the wheel. The scoring wheel. And I didn't clean that up yet, but, oops. So that whole wheel is pretty much Teflon, and basically you have all these switches that kind of ride on it as it turns and scores, and each one of those things will definitely do a different part of controlling the whole thing. And that's really the brains, at least a big part of the brain for a pinball machine. Any EM machine will have something very similar to that. A couple different styles. This one kind of looks like that. There's one that is totally round and has multiple levels going up, opposed to a long ways. So if I ever get a machine like that, I will definitely show you. I think now Bally was more like this, I think. Well, maybe Gottlieb. I never say that right. Definitely people say that a different way, but definitely a couple different types. Most of them are like this, but there are one that's round. But anyway, moving on. I didn't clean this yet on this. It actually moved pretty well once I put the spring on it. You can see, yeah, the solenoid would make this action until it gets to a spot that there's no gear on the wheel, and basically that means you got the ball 5, and the reset would be on this side, and the solenoid pulls in and resets the whole thing, and it moves pretty good. What you want to do to test these out, you actually want to do each ball separately, and then so move it once and then reset it. Move it 2 times to simulate ball 2, reset it. 2, 3, reset it. And you want to make sure that on the other side it goes back to the home position when you reset. And as long as it does that at every ball, it's pretty good. If you see a drag or a slowness or even get stuck, yeah, you want to take that wheel apart, and it's actually easy. You take the C-clip off, you pull out the other side off, there's a nut and bolt, take that off, and then I'll slide right off. It's not that hard getting back together. The hardest part is just making sure you count how many times this thing is around this, because when you take it apart, this obviously will lose its tension because it'll swing. My hand's in the way, sorry. When you take this off, it'll honestly want to try to unwind. So you want to kind of do that, let it unwind, but count how many times it's unwinding. Then when you put it back together, wind it back up, then put it on there. So if it's 2 revolutions, you go 2 the other way, then put it back on. 3, obviously you go 1, 2, 3, put it back on. So it's actually pretty easy. All the switches looked good, and the solenoids, they don't look, even though the paper's off the one, doesn't look too bad. Bottom one looks okay. Like I said, mechanically it seems to work all right. You can still get the solenoids. Again, they're pretty pretty easy to get still. I'm assuming they're still being made there. I mean, they're pretty much still being made to this day, and pinball machines still have coils in them. So they definitely are available. All right, moving on to probably, I don't know if you can see it, but here, go this way. The next piece, actually, place this cord. Yeah, this is your, if I can focus, there we go. Your 1972 original plug that back then I wouldn't have used it, but because there should have been a paper cardboard cover that fits over this, but clearly that's missing. So I have a new cable and replace that, and that would be, yeah, we're not going to be able to see. Let me see if I can get some light on the subject. You can kind of, maybe not, there you go. See the brown wire in the middle of the screen now? If you look, there's a black screw nut, a wire nut I should say. There's one on each side that wire runs into, so I got to kind of take it apart. See one of the plastic brackets holding it in place. There's one on the other side. You can kind of see it. And right there's the screw. And you take that apart. And you just take the wire nut off and connect them. Now, I'm not a fan of that. I might actually solder the ends. See how good it actually winds up when I take the thing apart and put the nut on it and go from there. I mean, they are tied down. I mean, that's pretty much what's in your house, so I guess I'm okay with it. Go from there. All right, so let me do that and I'll get back to you. All right, boys and girls of YouTube, last thing I was doing was connecting the wires, and you can see they are connected now. Now the green with the yellow is a ground. These never had a ground on them. I gotta read up on that. So a couple of posts where it says you connect it to the power, you know, to the to one of the bolts on the side there at the bottom, usually the base. I'm gonna read a little more up on that, but you know, it's tied in. It's using wire ties. Basically, that's all I had. I want to get some clips to actually, you know, kind of like this, but smaller, just to fit the cable. Because the original cable, let's see if I can pull that out. You can see, maybe not. Yeah, kind of. It was much thinner. You know, it's a thinner cable. It's an older style. You know, the wire ties are great for holding it now, but does not look like it should be there, and just a temporary for right now. So next step is to clean the inside of the cabinet, vacuum it out, clean it up a little bit. I don't know if you can be able to see this section, but yeah, it's a little dark. Not so bad. There's the chimes, but yeah, where the coin box was, it's a little dirty and dingy, and gotta clean all that up. But when I start putting the cabinet back together, because really putting this together now and going through all this just to make sure it works. So when I clean the cabinet and redo the graphics, although in the video, other than right in the middle where it's rubbed off, doesn't look too bad, but you know, live and in person, it definitely has a little bit wear and tear to it. So more to come. All right, folks, just a real quick vacuum just to get up some of the loose stuff. And now I'm going to get all this back in the box. So let me go do that, and then I'll turn this back on. Alright, as you can see, we've got it back in the box. When you're lifting it up, you kind of, well, two things. One, it's a little on the heavy side. I mean, it's not like you need two people to lift it up, but it's got a little bit of weight to it. And also, when you're moving it in, you have these side rails that the playfield kind of rests on both sides. And, you got to obviously kind of put it on a little bit of an angle so you can get, one side below it. And then once you do that, you can kind of ease it in and it'll fall right into place. It's definitely thinner than, the inside of the box, but it's because that's probably a little wider because the side rail is over here. But really what holds these things in are just two bolts. There's a hole right there. If you can see, there's a piece of wood that goes straight across. That there's just a, I forget what they call those inserts. Maybe it's just inserts. But it's a threaded insert they put on the back side, so you can just kind of screw that in. And there's another one right there. So you can see it. Alright. You just screw it down. So I'll do that later. But the one thing that I didn't disconnect, from the wires, this is the knocker. So when you've got a free game, you hear that big loud knock, that's from this one. Sometimes they're in the back box. This one is, in the playing field box. So I gotta still connect that. So there's two screws, one there. And then the only other thing, just run the wires here back through the opening here. I'll do that a little later when I put the back box on, but I did run the cord just to make sure it fit in the groove, because what they did on these machines, instead of putting something in the back here, they ran it through the top and put a little groove, and just the back box hold it in. I was worried for a second that this would be not a thick enough groove, but it feels like it's fine. I'm not worried. Actually, I help hold it in there, so that's good. I still might, later on maybe run, something just to tie it down here, just to make sure. It is flopping around a little bit, but it's in. It works out well. Definitely recommending upgrading that wire, for the power. Definitely don't trust those old wires in there. And it wasn't expensive. I mean, it's a 10-foot wire. I think it was like $12. Easy to do. I think for safety purposes, definitely worth it. I do like to keep things as original as possible, but safety is always a factor too. So, all right, folks. So the next time we're gonna put the back box on and work on the electronics in that. Switches, you'll see. All right, so till next time, I will talk to you later.